Buongiorno, everybody. Let's kick off Argento August with, I'll be covering most of his films every Saturday and Sunday for the next 4 weeks. So I figured what better place to start than The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, his directorial debut, which is an excellent directorial debut. And the great thing about doing all his films for the next 4 weeks is I don't have to mention the director's name every time. Like in Dario Argento, that's it. Never have to mention it again. But how does this film, any Argento fans out there, how does this film rank for you guys among all of his other films? Like, do you enjoy this film? Do you love it? Is it one of your lesser favorites of his? Leave it in the comments. I'm curious about how people feel about this film compared to his others and with every other film I'm going to be talking about. But figured let's start with his first 3 films with the Animal trilogy. And I'll talk about Argento just for a little bit in general, but there's a reason this guy's a master of horror. Like, he's one of my favorite directors of all time. This guy just has such an eye for the camera shots that he uses and the angles and just all the camera work and just the way that he films certain scenes from different angles and just his use of color, like in some of his later films. We don't see too much of that in this or in the next film or two, but it starts getting very prevalent from like Deep Red on. And just his use of color is just fucking amazing. And like the patterns and stuff, he has such an eye for repeating patterns. Like, you see it a lot in this movie, like patterned wallpaper. There's a lot of scenes in this movie and in most of his films that I can recall that have a lot of shots and a lot of scenes with like repeating pattern wallpaper or carpet, like when Sam goes to try to track down the shooter who was after him. The place that he goes to is like a hotel or something like that where they're having that convention, and the carpet is the same thing, just like a repeating trippy pattern. Like, he has such an eye for that. The gore in his films is excellent. Like, the kills are excellent. Like, everything this man does. Obviously, for most Argento fans know, like, as the decades went on, and this happens with a lot of directors, like many directors. Like, look at John Carpenter. After the few decades of excellent films, like some of the greatest films ever made, like horror-wise or otherwise. The Thing is my favorite movie of all time. Halloween is a perfect film for me. Like, going from all of his great films, and then I don't know what happens. Like, maybe they lose the creative juice, or they get so famous and have all the money, have all the fame, and they just don't put their all into the movies anymore, or they just get called by producers and studios to make a film that they really have no interest in, and so it shows in the films. I don't know exactly why that happens with a lot of directors, but it does with a lot of directors, and the same thing with Argento, unfortunately. Like, from the 90s onwards, pretty much. Like, Two Evil Eyes I love, Trauma, Stendhal Syndrome, and like Mother of Tears from 2007. Besides that, like from the 90s on, like he really kind of went downhill. But everything he did in the 70s and 80s and those aforementioned films afterwards are just fucking amazing, man. Like, I love this movie, but I don't rank it as high as some of his other films, like Tenebrae and Phenomena and Opera, Deep Red, Suspiria, Inferno. Like, it goes on, but like, I love all of his films from the 70s and 80s for sure. So let's get into The Bird with the Crystal Plumage from 1970. Having pictures of you taken without your knowledge is a scary thought. Like, we see this in a lot of horror movies and a lot of films over the years, but just the thought of that, especially being a woman and stuff, and just not knowing that your picture is being taken and not knowing why, and then not knowing what's coming your way, that you're going to be fucking murdered by some crazy maniac. It's a scary thought. And then we see the killer looking around with the classic giallo black gloves and everything. Awesome. And those are some cool looking knives that the killer has when he lays out like all the fucking daggers and knives that he has. Some cool looking stuff. Like I said the same thing in Jeepers Creepers with the Creepers knife that Ray Wise's character finds in Jeepers Creepers 2. Awesome knife. I don't know. I notice shit like that. So we have Sam, our main character, is a writer, writing about rare birds. And I love, there's a lot of funny stuff in this movie. Like, despite like all the more gruesome content, like there's some funny shit in this movie. I love his little line when he goes to get his check. And then the person says, like, you want your copy? And he's like, what for? I have this. Like, the actual check. Awesome stuff. Real funny. And the acting in this movie is very, very good. I really like Sam's character. I really like Julia's character. Monica, her husband, I forget his name, Ranieri or something like that. It's hard, man, in a lot of Italian horror films to remember characters' names and stuff. Because... And I'm not saying for all Italian horror, absolutely not. But a lot of people I know who try to get into Italian horror or try to get into like Argento or Fulci, Bava, Lenzi, like, and it goes on and on. But it is a very acquired taste getting into Italian horror. Like, it's a completely different style than American horror or any other horror from any other country. Like, it's in a league all of its own. And sometimes it takes a few like tries at watching different films by different Italian directors before it might click for you. And it doesn't click for everybody. So, but I hear a lot of criticism sometimes about that the plot in these movies is so thin, and that it's just a bunch of scenes strung together with a bunch of gore and disturbing imagery and just style over substance, which I can understand that argument. Like, I can see that argument, because a lot of Italian horror films are very stylish over the plot, and the plots of some of these movies can be very thin, especially like with Fulci. Like Fulci, if I had to pick out of my three favorite Italian directors, Bava, Argento, and Fulci, I'd say Fulci's plots in his movies are the thinnest out of all of them. But it doesn't matter. It's fucking Fulci. Like, he's a fucking genius. But I feel like Argento, the plots in his movies and the premises are a bit more fleshed out compared to like Fulci stuff. So I can definitely see where people are coming from. The people who can't get into, Italian horror and this genre and giallos and, etc., what have you. But the acting in this movie is great by pretty much everybody. And it's hard for me it's hard to remember characters' names and stuff in Italian horror movies, like, at least for me, because there's not really a lot of character development in a lot of Italian horror movies. There just isn't. Like, they just get right into the start of the movie and the premise that kicks it off, and then we just go from there. But this movie does a good job of like showing us Sam's character and the way that he is, and very good main character for this movie, and such a great directorial debut. Awesome stuff. And then the art gallery with all the art pieces and everything, like, it's so gorgeous. Like, that whole scene is so gorgeously shot. Like, that's what I mean. Like, just his eye for how to direct a scene and how to shoot a scene and the camera angles. And fucking, he's a master at that. Like, he's so good at that. And then imagine being trapped and having to watch this woman, like, bleeding out, and like you think she might die and everything. That's gotta suck, man. Like, being completely helpless to help this person. And it's suspenseful. Like, it's very tense, that whole scene. And that's another thing, that just Argento is a master of making tension and just building suspense. And I can't say enough about Argento. Well, I can. I'll be saying it for the next 4 weeks, but like, he's absolutely phenomenal, like, in every way. Good thing that old woman was there, or Sam would be dead when he comes up with the cleaver. And I love that shot, like, after when the woman says watch out and he ducks and the cleaver hits the pipe and then the water starts spraying out. Awesome shot. Like, I don't know why I like that shot so much, but looks really, really cool. Let's see here. Sam's wife's reaction, Julia, when he comes home and tells her for the first time, like, what he's been through that day, and that he witnessed an attempted homicide, and that he almost just got killed himself and everything, like her reaction is like zero. Like there is no reaction from her. Like you would think, like I forget if it's his wife or his girlfriend. I think it's his wife. I'm not sure, but whatever. It doesn't matter. The woman he's with, but her reaction is like non-existent. Like you would think, like with any normal person, like, oh my god, honey, are you okay? Like nothing. Like he's just laying there in bed and just shrugs it off. And then he gets in bed and with her, and she starts like asking again, and then they just start laughing it off and stuff. Like she has no reaction to this, which is kind of fucking weird. The whole thing with the lineup and the detective saying just the way that he keeps saying that, like, we have bring out all the perverts, and then and they start bringing them out one by one, and then they bring out the transvestite, and he's like, no, what is he doing here? He's like, he belongs with the transvestites, not the perverts. This shit wouldn't fly today, man. Let me tell you that. This movie would not go over well today. The fucking oversensitive, everyone bitches about everything world that we live in. Like, absolutely not. But that shit's funny as hell. Why would the detective just tell Sam Monica's address? Like, because he even makes a point, the detective, saying, before he takes his passport, saying that, like, what if, the possibility that you tried to kill her, then when you were leaving, you got trapped in the doors. So that could be what happened. So, like, he is sort of a suspect in a way, and that's why they don't want him to leave. So why would he just give him Monica's address? Like, unless at that point he just, like, has a instinct or a hunch that Sam, had nothing to do with this. That's the only thing I can think of. But I thought it was weird that, like, he gave out this girl who was almost murdered and that he witnessed the crime, her address. Like, I don't know. I found that kind of strange. I love the whole thing, which is Sam and his wife trying to solve the murders. Like, we see that in a decent amount of giallos and stuff, that the main character is trying to solve the crime themselves. But I don't know, just their chemistry together in this movie, Sam and Julia, and just the way that they're, like, laying in bed, like, casually, like, reading the newspaper and reading about the past murders and trying to figure everything out. Really enjoy that in this movie. And the painting, that is one eerie fucking painting, man. With the guy killing the girl and everything, and I love how it comes into play near the end of the movie. The score in this movie, I enjoy it. Like, I think it's a very good score. I'll probably be mentioning the score in every single one of his movies, because, I mean, with all his movies with Goblin doing the score and stuff, it's just fucking amazing. And I actually liked Goblin before I ever saw an Argento film. Like, I'm a huge progressive rock fan, like, pretty much most of my life. So I knew about Goblin, I heard some of their stuff. So, like, when I got into Argento and I noticed that it was Goblin that did the score for so many of his movies, I was like, that's fucking awesome, man. Like, Goblin's awesome. And even after they broke up, like, he's still, like, members of the band were still doing the score for other movies of his, like, just awesome stuff. But the score for this movie, it's very good. Like, I highly enjoy it. Like, there's some tense scenes with this music playing that just adds to the tension a lot. But I wouldn't put the score in this movie up with any of my, like, real favorite Argento films. But it's not a bad score, like, by any means. I love how it turns, that shot, how it turns from the copy of the painting in Sam's apartment to the real colored painting in the killer's place, and then it just pans out from the camera. Awesome shot. That looks so cool. Really, really good. Then the killer's next victim, when he comes in and he ends up, like, ripping her shirt with the knife, and, like, just the way that whole scene is shot, man. Like, just showing her mouth when she's screaming, and then, like, showing her hand, like, grasping for the bed comforter, the covers, and then the killer, like, cutting her underpants off, and all of that. Just the way it's all shot is awesome. Such a great scene. And you could see, like, in this movie, and with Cat o' Nine Tails, and I haven't seen Four Flats on Grey Velvet in a while. But I don't think in that movie either. Like, this was 1970, this movie. So it was only like 10 years after Psycho. And there really wasn't a lot of really gory films in the very early 70s, late 60s. I mean, there were, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't really as prevalent. Like, I feel like as soon as Bava released Twitch of the Death Nerve, or A Bay of Blood, whatever you want to call it, I think Twitch of the Death Nerve is one of the coolest, greatest titles for a horror movie, like, ever. Like, I don't know why they just stuck with that they didn't stuck with that title for worldwide release instead of calling it A Bay of Blood in America and stuff. Because Twitch of the Death Nerve, dude, come on. That is such an awesome title for a movie. But the title for this movie is great too, and I love how the title is explained. Like, and you find out near the end why it's called what it's called. Like, really, really cool stuff. But there's not a lot of gore in this movie. Like, there's not a lot of on-screen kills or anything like that, which is fine. There doesn't have to be, but because like the story is so well done in this, and just everything about this movie is so well done. And as a giallo, it's fantastic. So you don't really need over-the-top gore in this movie, but I do. Well, I'm a gore hound. Slasher is my favorite subgenre of horror. I've said that many, many times on this channel. But as his films went on, like maybe from like Deep Red onwards, just phenomenal gore in his movies too and stuff. Like, really, really good. But like, I like how they keep showing the initial crime at the art gallery throughout the film. Like, to show Sam constantly playing it through his mind and trying to figure out something he didn't see. Like, really cool concept of like keep showing that initial few like shots and stuff of the art gallery crime of her, her attempted murder, of him just trying to contemplate if he really saw anything else, or if there's a detail he's missing, which he keeps saying throughout the movie. Like, I know there's something else, I just can't pin it down. Like, I can't figure out what it is. And we find that out near the end too. The pimp, this shit's so funny. The pimp that he goes to visit, because one of his prostitutes was one of the victims, and he says he was framed and set up. But like, when they first start the conversation, like, he says so long, then like Sam just gets up to leave, and he's like, "Where are you going?" He's like, "Well, you said so long." He's like, I say that so I don't stutter. And then he just keeps saying like, "All right, well, yeah, I was there, and he's a prostitute, and so long." And then like, dude, that's so funny. And then the way that Sam like refers to him and just calls him so long, like when he's talking to Julia about him and everything, like he just refers to him as so long. Like, that's so funny. Hysterical shit. And then we get the police tail that's watching over them get just plowed by that car, man. And that looks fucking brutal, man. Like, it really does. It's like just a few little short seconds, but it looks pretty good. And then why does Sam lie about remembering the shooter's face? Because the detective asks him, "Do you remember what he looks like? Would you be able to pick him out?" And then they show you like a clear shot of his face. But then he says, "No, I can't remember." Is that just because he's getting so obsessed with this crime that he wants to solve it himself? That's the only thing I can think of, is that he wants to solve this himself. And that's the reason that he says he doesn't recognize the shooter, because he wants to track him down and try to solve all these crimes. If anyone has any theories on that, like any other explanation, definitely put it in the comments, let me know. Because that's the only thing I can think of, is that he's just getting so obsessed with this case that he just kind of wants to be a lone wolf on this and just wants to figure it out before the cops do, for some reason. I don't know. The next victim, the shots when she walks into her apartment building, you see the wrapping staircase, and you get the shot from below looking up, and you see the shot from above looking down and stuff. Awesome shots. They look so good. Really cool stuff. Her kill, it reminds me of the shower scene in Psycho. Like, when you just keep stabbing her and over again, because you don't see the knife go in her at all. But the way that it's shot is very Hitchcock-esque, like very Psycho-esque. That, like, just like in the shower scene in Psycho, where just the way that shot and the way that Hitchcock shot that, with seeing the knife come out, but you never see it touching her skin or going in her or anything like that. Very, very similar with this scene. Like, it's very, very similarly shot. Like, I was surprised on this rewatch. I was like, wow, that's like very, very Psycho-ish. but looks awesome. Like he shot that very, very well. And then we just see some blood like shoot off the side of the screen. Like I said, the gore doesn't really come into play in his movies until more like the late 70s or mid 70s at least. But still awesome stuff. And Faina, the guy who says that he knows everything, he's got some funny shit too. When he comes in, he's like, I don't know anything, I don't know anybody. And he's like, all right. And he's like, what do you want to know? And then they pay him and everything. And then they're like, well, when will I hear from you? And he's like, never. Maybe tomorrow. Really funny shit, man. There's some stuff in this movie that cracks me up, like I said. That cool shot of Sam finding the guy who tried shooting him, like stuffed in like a crawl space or something, it looks like. Just a shot of Sam standing there, then bending down to pick something up, and you see the body behind him, and then he stands back up. Really, really great. Love that. Really good stuff. Carlo is his name, right? The guy who's listening to the tape with Sam and trying to figure out what that creaking noise is. And I thought it was really good red herring with him smoking the cigar. And when he leaves, he says, so long, as in like a reference to the guy, the pimp, so long. So like it's a very good red herring, in my opinion, because we know that this killer smokes expensive cigars, which is what they say earlier. And I don't know, I just thought that was a good little red herring for us to think, oh wait, that guy's smoking a cigar. And then having him say so long, he's like, that might be the fucking guy right there. And of course it's not. But very good misdirection there. The painter that he goes to visit, Sam, is so fucking weird, man. He's such a weird, eccentric painter. Like, fucking creepy looking, man. And I love how he just gets up randomly, like while they're eating, and he just like, without saying anything, he just gets up and walks over to one of his paintings, and there was like a half a sun, and he just like paints the other half, and he goes, genius. And then he just sits back down. That guy's so crazy, man. That's so funny. And then he eats cats, which is fucked up. Then just that whole implication that he was eating cat with Sam. And he said, you never ate cat? And he's like, no, I never did. And he's like, And then like Sam looks and they show the shot of the food they were eating, and you know that was cat that he was eating. Really awesome stuff. Like, can you imagine being fucking fed cat and not knowing it? And then finding out a few minutes later that you just ate some cat? Dude. That's fucked up to do to somebody. At least say what you're eating, what you're giving them. Like, here's some tomatoes. Here's like some fucking whatever. It's like, here's some cat. No, thank you. I don't eat cat. All right, thanks. Like, that's not that hard to do, but apparently this guy's so out of it and everything. And then his whole speech about the painting and the origins of it, it was a real life thing. That he was a girl that he knew, and she was attacked 10 years ago, and he saved her like at the last moment, and that's what got him to paint the painting, and how all that with the painting ties into the ending. So well done. I love all of that. And then the whole scene with the killer trying to get into the apartment to get to Julia. Such great atmosphere and tension in that whole scene. Just her trying to get out every way that she could, like through the skylight, through the bathroom window, and there's bars on it, and she's screaming and like cowering in the bathroom like she doesn't know what to do, and the killer's putting the knife through the door and makes a hole through it, and then we get that cool shot of his eye looking through the peephole, and she's running, or peephole, but through the hole that he carved out of the door, and she takes the knife, Julia, and tries to stab him in the eye, like through the hole. Just that whole scene is awesome. Like, very, very good. Awesome tension, very good suspense, just awesome stuff. Like, really good scene. Might be one of my favorite scenes in this movie. And then we find out why the title is The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and Carlo finds out that the bird, the cackling sound is from a rare bird. Which makes me think, like, Sam is writing a book on rare birds. He's never heard of this bird before? I mean, yeah, there are so many different species of bird. And this one's only in like Siberia or something they mention. So like, it's totally plausible he never heard of this specific species of bird, for sure. But I just thought that was like, they could have played into that a little bit more. Like, with the whole premise of him writing a book on rare birds. Then near the end of the movie, like the clue leading them to the killer is a rare bird. So I feel like they could have played off that a little bit more, but just finding out why he called it the bird with the crystal plumage, and just seeing that awesome rare bird, and that bird looks awesome, like a really cool looking bird. And then they realize that it's right by Ranieri and Monica's window, and that's when he made the phone call with disguising his voice. That was why they heard the bird cackling. It was right outside. So they live right next to a zoo, I guess, because they said this bird's at the zoo. And I mean, it's kind of convenient that this bird can't live in captivity, Carlos said, and that they're from Siberia, and that's the only country that they're from and are in. But then conveniently, like just one of them is in the zoo in Italy. Like, I don't know, a little convenient, but awesome stuff, either or. Then Ranieri being dropped from the window, like just the way that he's pleading, like for his life, like I don't want to die, and then he just slips out of their hands and falls to the fucking pavement, and he just like blood all over the place. Like I said, I keep saying about the gore, which I keep saying isn't a big problem, but like just imagining if he made this film like in 1978 or something, like we would have seen Ranieri's head like explode like into mush when he hit the ground. But like I said, it doesn't matter. It's just the gorehound in me coming out and saying, damn, I wish like we saw more of that. And then he confesses to the crimes, and the detective says that he feels sorry for him. He's like, poor little devil, I feel sorry for him. Why does he feel sorry for this guy? He's a murderer, as what they know at that point. And he's killed like 5 women. So what the fuck does he feel sorry for him for? That's a weird line. I don't know. And I don't understand that line. Why you feel sorry for this guy. This sick murderer in his mind, because we find out soon that it's not him. But he thinks it is at that time from his confession and everything. So why do you feel sorry for him? Like, this guy's a sack of shit. But I don't know. That's just a weird line. And then when Sam tracks down, tries to find Julia or Monica, and then he gets into the dark apartment and everything. Really suspenseful scene, like very, very well done. Also in that scene, and he doesn't see, but like we see Julia with a gag in her mouth, tied up under like a couch or something like that. Why couldn't she, like, it's just a small little gag in her mouth. Like, she couldn't just go like make a sound at all. Like, she couldn't make any sound to let Sam know that she was down there. That's a little weird. And she does do that, like, right at the end of that scene, like, before Sam leaves the apartment. So, like, I don't know why she couldn't do it the whole time. She wasn't unconscious. Like, her eyes were wide open. She was looking around. Like, so why didn't she make a sound? I don't know. I don't get that either. But then we see Carlo with the knife in the back of his head, and you think that it's him for a second. Like, there's a lot of cool misdirection in this movie. Like, making you think it's this person, or thinking it's whatchamacallit, thinking it's Carlo, or thinking it's possibly the pimp, or like before he got arrested, or thinking that it's pretty much just Carlo. That's basically the only one. But and the husband, Ranieri, obviously. And then we find out that Monica was the killer, and that she was, and that's the thing that Sam couldn't remember through all of this. He keeps saying there's something that I just can't pin down, like what it was that I saw. And he realizes right then and there, that's what he saw. He saw her with the knife trying to kill her husband. Why was the husband dressed up in the old giallo outfit? I don't get that, like, at all. Like, why was he dressed up like that? If she was just trying to kill her husband, like, wouldn't he just be like in regular clothes, like not a disguise, and it was just like a domestic dispute, and she ended up trying to kill him, and then she got stabbed? Or I don't know. I don't get that. Why he's dressed up with the whole black gloves and coat and everything. Somebody explain that to me if they know an answer for it, because I have no idea why he's dressed like that. And then I love how it ends back in the art gallery. Like, just it's the whole crime and stuff of this and premise starts in the art gallery and it ends in the art gallery, which is awesome. And that sculpture that she cuts down and falls on top of him with all the spikes on it, that's fucking awesome looking. What a cool sculpture. And just the fact of like the spike sticking out of it. And then her laugh, man, like her insane laugh, Monica, is so creepy. Like she did such a good job playing just a woman completely out of her fucking mind at the end of this movie. Like her cackling laughter and just like, you're gonna die, now you're gonna die. Like awesome stuff. Like I said, all the performances for the most part in this movie are very, very well done. Very great performances. And let's see, just like that. And I love how the cops just come in like right when she's about to kill Sam and just like karate chop her on the neck. And like that's how they subdue her. For some reason that cracks me up every time. Like they just come in and just like boom and like karate chop her on the neck, and that's how they take her down. That's pretty funny. And then just finding out near the end, which is very, again, like reminds me of Psycho. Like at the end of Psycho when we have the doctor and stuff explaining Norman and the mother and like how his personalities merge together and everything. Same at the end here when they're broadcasting, you know, saying that they caught the murderer, and then they ask the detective like what was her motive, why would she do this? And then he says, I think it's better to have, you know, the psychiatrist explain. Then he starts giving the exposition and explaining her motive and stuff. I don't know, it just reminds me of Psycho like a decent amount. And just the whole motive for her is awesome. Like such a good motive. Like how it ties back into the painting, and that she was the girl that the painter knew and saved her life, and that she identified more with the killer in the painting than with what was supposed to be her, with the victim. And like for 10 years it just lay dormant in her mind and everything until it just, you know, her psychoticness just came back out, and then her husband was trying to protect her and everything. Awesome motive. And that's pretty much it. But that is The Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Such a good movie. Like I said, nowhere near like my top Argento films, but I absolutely love this movie. And every movie from the 70s, 80s, and certain ones a little bit after that I mentioned earlier, that I just love all of them. Like he is an absolute master, Argento. Everything he touches, for the most part, is just fantastic. And it's going to be so fun rewatching all of his movies all these weekends for this month. So, alright guys, that's Bird with Crystal Plumage. We're going to The Cat of Nine Tails after this, and like I said, I'll try to have Four Flies on Grey Velvet up, because I was going through all his movies yesterday, and I was trying to plan it out in my head. Like, alright, if I do 2 or 3 videos Saturday, and then 2 or 3 on Sunday for 4 weekends, I'm going to run out of movies for him. Like by the 3rd weekend will be the end of it. And then what do I do on that 4th weekend? And then I just thought, and I said, this is what I'll do. I'll do Demons and Demons 2, since he wrote the screenplay for those. And then maybe I'll do the Suspiria remake, which I think is a phenomenal remake. As different as it is from the original, like it's such a great remake. Like I highly, highly adore the Suspiria remake. So I'll probably do that like for the last weekend. I'll do Demons 2, and maybe like The Church, like another film that he did the script for, the screenplay for. So that's up in the air for the last weekend, but figure 2 to 3 a day for Saturday and Sunday for the next month. And probably by tomorrow we'll be at Deep Red and Suspiria and maybe Inferno. So got all those to look forward to tonight and tomorrow, and hope everyone has a good time from the time that I end this to the start of Cat of Nine Tails, as I'm going to go watch it right now. So take care everybody, see you soon.